the season, and any other things that you want to touch on first before we open it up to questions.
Yeah, just the emotion of last night has died down a little bit. I'm very competitive, but just understanding, I'm super proud of our group. Um, with a lot of things that happened this year, we can pinpoint all of those things without being super specific, but understanding that the resiliency that was shown through the adversity, the game last night, the effort, the energy, the amount of pride that our players continue to play with. First year going through it with this group, learned a lot, experienced a lot, and again, just very, very proud of the crew and what they brought on a day-to-day basis, and really decompressing a little bit, but I'm honestly looking forward to jumping right back in preparation for next year.
All right, thanks a lot, Coach. Let's go ahead and open up for questions with Percy Allen. Percy, go ahead and kick us off.
Awesome. Hey, Coach, I'm just wondering, obviously it's just 24 hours old, but if there's one or two things that you could change from this season, what would they be?
I'll give you the cliche, and maybe I'll just give you a me answer. I would have obviously wanted us to remain healthy. I think healthy with no Olympics. But the deeper answer for me is that I wouldn't have it happened exactly the way it should have happened or needed to happen, because something about going through an experience or an adverse experience or a difficult situation, it brings greatness out of people. It brings something different out of people. And this stretched me in a way that I haven't been stretched in a long time. And from a coaching standpoint, just understanding more about myself and what it takes to do this job. So yes, I would have like things to, in a perfect world, have a smooth sailing. But I think for this group and for me in particular and my leadership and, the players that we have coming back, it happened the way it should have happened. And that's what I'm going to take this season as.
Are there one or two aspects of this season that you're most proud of?
Yes, winning the Commissioner Cup, that's cool. Being able, it to be the first, the inaugural of that, having the banner up and everything, that was pretty cool. And I think just finishing up the season on the note, the second half, the adversity that we went through, I thought that we kind of weathered a little bit of those storms, but just some bright spots. Ezzy, Lou had a great last game. Like the bright spots of the players who kind of weren't talked about this season as much. Mercedes. So there are bright spots, I think, individually that I can highlight as well.
And then just what type of conversations do you plan to have with Talisha and Alicia just about remaking this team, if you will? I mean, I don't know if you have to remake it, but you only really have 4 players under contract and there's a lot of free agents. Do you think, can you sort of try to bring it all back, or because of the way the CBA is now, I'm not even sure that you guys can even do that because, of just how salaries are. So how do you envision this team looking next year?
The CBA does present a situation to where, and it's happening with a lot of teams, you can't keep everyone. But priorities, I talked to, you try to get ahead of the curve, and our conversations in the off season will be, prioritizing our signings, and, adding some depth or whatever that they may be, looking at our free agents, but also other free agents within the league. So building, when you have building blocks and elite players to start with, then it's never a rebuild more so than a reload. And I think that's kind of, you have to approach the situation of complementary players and players who will add value. And I'm so excited about this off seasons because it's my first time to kind of be within those conversations and be in the mix of trying to create a roster that is set up to be in the mix for next season.
And just this last one for me, do you plan to have maybe conversations with like Jewel Lloyd? Because so it was Stewie who said that she wants to return and plans to return, and with Jewel, when that was asked to her, she's like, look, I'm going to take this time to figure out for me. And so it wasn't a definitive yay, I'm coming back, but let's kind of see how this goes.
Yeah, I mean, as she should. She's in a situation where she's in the driver's seat in her decision making, and I mean, the ball is in her court. We know that we want, is my cell pitch right here, Percy. Jewel knows what's up. She knows that, if I'm here, I want her here, we want her here. And she's had an amazing year and I value her so much. I'm so proud of her in that. And she deserves it. She deserves the time to make a decision and take time with her decision. And we should value that and give her that space.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, and let's go ahead and go with Jeff Brown. Jeff, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, what are some characteristics of players? Obviously, I'm not expecting you to name like, current free agents or anything, but just characteristics that you really want to have on your basketball team.
First and foremost, that we have to have, the toughness. We talk about all the time here, we call it like a dog mentality. We have to have tough-minded players. If you think, strategy-wise, schematic-wise, we have to get a little bit more athletic, especially we talk about that three spot all the time, but just in general, what I noticed this year is a lot of, our tougher matchups were against those more athletic guard groups and those teams that have athletic guards. And so I think in order to match, the youthfulness that's coming into our league, the isolation situations, the athleticism, I think we have to counter that with adding more depth in that way. And obviously, we've shot the three well. We gotta have another shooting big to stretch the floor, in my opinion. Now I'm giving you guys kind of in-depth, right? Super specific, but we have a good core to work around. Obviously is free agency. We understand if we sign the players that we need to sign, those are kind of three specific areas that I think we can improve in.
Hey, if you want to give us super specific answers, we'll take that all day.
You're baiting me, Jeff. You're baiting me.
So we talked to players obviously about, what are the skills you want to develop in the off season? As a head coach, what are the areas that you look to improve upon for next season?
I mean, I'm going to take this time to really go to some NBA games, training camps. I have a few connections in that way. Obviously look at our games with a different eye, less emotional, but just in a strategy wise. But anything that I approach just in life, it's about my growth and getting better. I'm my own worst critic. So really looking at the game, how we can be innovative, how we can grow our offenses and our defenses. My philosophy, understanding I will start fresh. I kind of, took on our team within 5 or 6 games in. So what's my philosophy? How do I want to play? How can I create an offense and defense that is conducive to our players? Not tweak the system all the way, but just kind of put my imprint on those things.
Definitely. And then, obviously right now it's all up in the air. We don't know if this is Sue Bird's, final game yesterday. Mm-hmm. I know you spoke on it a little bit, but just what has she meant to this organization? What has she meant to the WNBA and as a teammate and now as a player you've coached?
She's amazing. She's meant everything to me as her friend, teammate, now present coach. She does not cheat the game. She does not cheat the grind. She honors the game in every way possible. She studies the game. She watches film. She works on her body. She prepares in every way that you can possibly prepare in order to be at her best. And I always talk about 2018 because I was alongside of her in the journey, and she was stretched so much that, I mean, I didn't know how much more great she can be, but man, she just showed me that, even though you are an elite athlete and you're a upper echelon of our game, there's still room to grow and improve. And she constantly does that. And for our game specifically, to have longevity, she's the blueprint for that. Her and Diana, they've had long careers, and they've set the tone, and they've set the stage for that. And it is amazing to be a part of her journey. I don't take it for granted. She's helped me in so many ways. And I will continue to lean on her and lean in with her, especially on my journey and our journey, and trying to continue to be the best version of myself within this job, in this role. And I will forever be grateful for just having the opportunity just to be in the same room as her, to be on the same team as her. And to be, playing alongside of her was amazing. But now, and as I grow, get a little bit wiser in what I'm trying to do, she's just been the ultimate teammate for me. And I will always go to bat for her.
Awesome. And then I think just the last one for me right now, being able to return back to the city of Seattle, climate, timing wise, you guys just kind of missed the opening of the brand new arena for this year. I guess just thoughts on that. And do you guys, I think I had asked one of the players earlier if they had been able to go and visit it yet, but do you have plans to, check out the arena, or as an organization, I assume, before next season?
Yeah, I think, one of the things the tools that we can use the Climate Pledge Arena floor is in the off season for free agents, giving them a taste of Seattle. And I think playing in that new arena would be super cool, and we are part of the process early on where we saw the blueprint or setup for it, and having an opportunity to go there and hopefully catch a Kraken game, and just be in that atmosphere. And that's something that I'm looking forward to doing. And I think that is going to just be, I think, one of the many highlights of next season, to be in that building.
Thank you, Noelle. It's been a pleasure.
No problem, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. And Erica Ayala. Go ahead, Erica.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Coach.
Hey,
Thanks for your time. I actually wanted to ask a little bit about the Commissioner's Cup. I've been asking everyone today about the Commissioner's Cup. I know you mentioned that was one of your highlights, but from the more of business, as far as the bonus money, you've been a player in this league, you know how the salaries work and all of that. Just your thoughts on being able to infuse a little bit more money into the pockets of players.
I think it's great. I wish that I was there when I was around. $30K in my pocket. Oh man. No, I think, we talk about how do we continue to grow the game? How do we pay players what they deserve, specifically women players? And this is something that the league committed to and highlighted. And I thought that, having it in Phoenix was cool, a neutral side, and fans there to engage, and the various things that they did for our viewership, with Amazon Prime, I believe it was, I think just added an extra element and shows the growth of our league and the importance of having these incentives for our players, not only because they deserve it. They work so hard for it. And you think about our women players, we our careers, we have to go overseas and we play full year round, and sometimes we don't get breaks. And so if you add these different things within our season, maybe it supplements somebody's salary, or maybe it helps someone to not have to go work so hard for 6 to 8 other months within the year. And I think it's important to continue to grow in that way, especially with our players, because they should get paid with what they deserve. And if we can continue to increase that, I think it helps I grow the game even more.
Just a few more questions on this, and some of these I've also put out to the league, so we'll see what they get back to us with. But I'm just curious if Amazon Prime had any deluxe coach package, or did you get to enjoy any of that new partnership by way of any monetary increase or anything?
Wow,
like that?
that's a great question. Not that I know of, but I mean, I go to Whole Foods and I would love to be a Amazon Prime official member sponsored by the WNBA. I would love that, Erica. I don't know that exists, but I think that's something that we should talk about for sure.
All right, we'll see if there's anything coming your way by winning the Commissioner's Cup or being part of that. Also, I know that we spoke to Sierra, and she was really great at breaking some of this down. But I wondered if, and again, this is just if you know anything from the coach's side of things, but you do have players that have come into the team. You've had players that were with the team for what I understand to be the threshold amount of games, but then we're not here by the time of the Commissioner's Cup. Are you aware of, in the case of like a Candace Dupree, was there a way that any of that Commissioner's Cup earnings would have went to a player even though they weren't at the Commissioner's Cup?
Yeah, I'm not well versed on how it got broken down. I know Talisa talked to me about it, and she was in talks with the league about it, how they broke it down. But I know to play in that game was already a set amount of money, whatever that was. And it was up to the league to break down the amount of games that were played and how much, and again, this is kind of the growth of what we had to establishes. This is probably something that the league wasn't prepared for, and understanding that we have multiple players play within those Commissioner Cup games, and who gets what, and how do you decide, and what is the percentage of that, and that was broken down in a way. So to answer your question, there is a path to that. I'm not well versed in that, but I know playing in that actual game established a certain threshold of that money.
Got you. And finally, this is a question that I've been asking everyone. There is the pot of money, regardless of what the percentage is. I mean, I guess the maximum that a player could get is more than the max that they would get for winning a WNBA title. So your Storm players that won a title last year made more, as far as bonus money anyway, by winning the Commissioner's Cup. And by winning the Commissioner's Cup, they will have won more money or earned more money, bonus money, than whomever wins the title today. Just curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, again, another form of incentivizing, right? I think as we grow within our league, can the coaches get some of that Commissioner Cup money too? But as we grow within our league, understanding that though, this is a special, the Commissioner Cup is special, but winning a WNBA title is very special, and something that a lot of people aren't able to do. And so what is the value in that? Is that a monetary number? Whatever it is, I think that probably should, be taken a look at, and understanding, weighing that the options of, who gets what and when, and valuing that championship money as well. Oh, this is good, Erica. Wow. I don't have a good answer for you. I'm just like,
listen,
the questions are making me think. Yeah.
The answer is the answer, that's why we're asking. I'm just curious, and since we had y'all figured, and we'll see where Connecticut ends up, because their answers could be interesting as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for talking some business with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Erica. And let's go to Masvita. Masvita, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, actually, no, this question is kind of adding on to some of Erica's questions in terms of, are you now present to kind of, I would say, the triad that's there for you, coach, the players and management, and just how you now, that whole.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of how much those worlds collide, and there is a form of, now this off season, there is a form of managing, the type of players you want to come and we want to have here, the type of players that I would like to coach. You're managing my staff, managing the team. There is a form of management that I didn't really think about. All I think about is hoop and like, how can I be better? How can I set the team up and put them in an environment and in spaces to where they are their best selves. But within that, I'm understanding now the other aspects of being a leader.
And the marketing, I think Jeff talked about this, now the new arena, I mean, all of that, the city.
Yeah, we got to sell it, and it's really important to understand. We talk about Seattle being a great city, and not just because the storm, but also the uniqueness, the culture, how Seattle fans ride for their teams, and the food, like all these things that come into play now. It's really going to be very important to market to people and make this place a place where they want to come and want to be a part of what's so special about this city.
And then I'm going to go back in terms of what a type of player. You didn't mention intelligence. I think you could have mentioned it, but how important is that for a player, not only being a dog, the mentality, athletic, but to be intelligent on the court for you to be able to mix and match different type of sets?
It's important. And you want to have high character players, high quality players, and high IQ players. But one thing that I've learned as a player, and now coaching within the league, it's that there are players who are more instinctful and use their instincts more than understanding how thinking the game 3 plays before, like we know that Sue can, so finding a good balance, not negating the fact that, yeah, we want smart players, that is important, but when you have a balance of that on the floor, you can kind of mix and match with the type of players that you get, because it's not too much of one thing and too little of another. And I think that's what we've been able to do for the most part, is get players who complement each other. And it takes time. We talked about it before, that 2018, we were cooking up for years and years and years. It takes time, but a balance of that, not only within the player, but within the team that you create, is important.
And then one last one, kind of the obvious softball one, but what do you do for the next couple of weeks, and how much time do you have before you really, dive into it? Or do you get time off?
I mean, not really. I'm not a good take time off person. I try to maintain balance in my life. So to completely shut my mind off, I probably won't. I have some, details to take care of at home when I get back to LA. But again, I'm really ready to dive back into the work. There's some training camps starting up, and trying to be a part of being able to go watch and learn in that way. So I'm from LA, so it's sunny all the time, and I'm good with just walking outside to the sun. I can't lay on a beach anywhere. I don't want to. I just want to chill, but also kind of get things rolling for next year.
Fair enough. And thank you for taking the time, for taking us in towards.
No problem.
Thanks, Masvita. I appreciate everything you all have done this year as well. And real quick, before we get to you, Lindsay D'Arcangelo was not able to join us today, but did have a question she wanted to get your opinion on, Coach. She's wondering, what does Noelle think about current WNBA playoff format regarding single elimination games, and would you change it? How does it affect the coaching aspect, especially working hard during the WNBA season to get a top 3 or 4 seed and then losing after the first game?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty torn between. I would like a sweet spot of the playoff format. So yeah, you work really hard to get to the playoffs. You deserve to be in a series. The single elimination game for first round maybe brings some excitement, but you know, that third and fourth seed, I mean, you look at Minnesota and what they did at the end of the year. You look at how, you know, Phoenix started playing at the end. Like it just gives teams a chance to duke it out in the playoffs with a series, and you know, creates these rivalries. We talked about that as well. But what I do like is the balanced schedule. So you know, it used to be West and East for a good while, and a lot of teams that were in the Eastern Conference had worse records than teams who are missing playoffs in the West. So providing a balanced schedule helps with travel, with all those things, and usually it works with itself out as far as the best teams are usually playing each other at the end. But I think at least a second round series, I'm kind of like leaning toward now as well. Best out of 3, whatever it is. I think those top seeds deserve that. Not just saying it because we were.
Understood. All right. Thanks for that. And then our last one, M, fire away.
Great. I'll start off. This is going to sound kind of like a joke, but I promise it's serious. You just touched on the LA Sun. I'm wondering if, you know, adjusting from the Sun in LA to, you know, this last day of the Sun up in Seattle, if that was an adjustment in terms of mental health. I know for me, going from like New York to North Carolina in terms of the heat, less snow, it certainly helped me.
Yeah, one thing about Seattle in the spring and summer is it's beautiful, especially the summers. So we usually miss this last part of Seattle, the rainy part, and so I think I get the best of both worlds because I come right in on time with that. But definitely, there's the aspect of, you know, that good weather, feeling good, playing into your whole mental being.
Great. Wanted to ask a few technical questions first. One of the things was during Ezzy's exit interview, she was asked if she saw herself more as a 4 or 5. I know that's definitely contention with some people. What do you see her as, and what skills does she need to develop either positionality?
Positionless. I'll go like that route. I think Ezzy, like we saw, she has an ability to shoot the 3. She has an ability to guard multiple positions. She guarded Griner. She finishes well around the rim. There, obviously, she's super young, and there are things that you know, that we will continue to help her hone in skill set wise. And because she's so young, we have to remember, like, she's a college player playing in the pros, and understanding there's a learning curve for her. But I think for her, just continuing to be a student of the game. We are in systems in this league where when you learn players and know players, and, you know, you are able to pick up on details and, you know, just know your personnel. And I think just continue to learn our league for her and the players that we play is going to, you know, be something that she will need to continue to work on and really get better at once we dive deeper into that. And then, you know, just kind of adding that mid-range type of game to her game. We see that she can get to the rim and finish. We see that she can knock down open shots. She can knock down 3s, continue to get better at that and get more consistent at that. But also what I like to see is, you know, with her ball handling, get to a mid-range turnaround or a short jumper, 15-footer. I think adding that another extra layer of scoring for her, she'll be so deadly. Again, year 2, scary if you think about how good she can be.
Were there, I know you guys are pretty tight-lipped, but before the deadline, were there any trades, early season trade deadline, trying to add and fill those holes that we saw pop up later in the year?
Yeah, there were, but nothing, you know, that we could solidify and kind of get done. So the thought process was always there to add at that time I'm big, but just kind of couldn't get that done.
Any players in particular you were looking at? And then also, did you guys inquire down to Atlanta when the Carter situation started kicking off?
What was the last part? Did we?
The first part was what like bigs in particular that you mentioned, and then the second one was once the Carter situation started happening in Atlanta, did you guys inquire down there?
Well, I'm the coach. I'm not the GM. I don't make those calls, but no comment on that. Well, no comment on those players.
Fair enough. I know for a lot of front offices, they can get a little stretched in term when it comes to evaluating, college players draft time.
Yeah.
What's the timeline for you guys when you start really doing film studies, really doing background checks on those players and figuring out your own draft board?
That's a great question. And that's something in my first off season I'm going to kind of, start to lock in on. Like I said, I'm not taking maybe take a day or two off, but just kind of divvying out and scheming, scheduling, prioritizing, because that's huge. It's not just about quantity, but quality in what we do. And I mean, it's never too early to start. Now we've actually kind of been starting, leading up to this off season and building. I know I have lists in my phone that I've been looking at players for a couple of years now. And, really locking in on what we need, where we'll be in the draft, other teams' draft positioning, and all of those things that come into play when either you're trying to acquire players or build rosters, whatever that case is. I'm more apt to say starting sooner than later, but this is my first go around, so maybe I'll have a better answer for you in a little while.
Gotcha. And I know Percy's mentioned before about the number of players you have under contract. Obviously, you're trying to bring back a majority of them. Is there, I'm sure there's not a target, but is there a certain amount of you have, I think, 5 draft picks coming up? Or is there a certain amount of, rookies that you, not from a money perspective, from like a coaching perspective, that you can handle bringing onto the team?
What I've learned and what I've learned about this league and in general, the teams who can start off with a core group have been together, and that learning curve in training camp is just about, tightening up, obviously teaching and starting from a specific point. But if you already have a team who is knowledgeable in your systems and what you do, then starting off in our league is so important. Like, you don't want to fall into a hole. So I'm not saying that I'm opposed to having a young team, but you have to have a good mix of balance of vets and people who have been in your system to negate there's a 2-week training camp period. So if you think about that, you don't want your team to be so new that you're spending that time teaching from day one. Teaching new things, but you want to have a good mix of being able to start from a spot of knowing what we like to do, how we like to do it, and it becomes fine tuning.
Gotcha. On that same thing, what was it like in the beginning of the season? I think Kiana Williams was the only rookie on the roster. What was it like sort of trying to bring her into what was such a veteran group?
It was great because honestly, we had a lot of high IQ rookies in camp, and we had a quality camp, and we didn't even have a lot of our players who are on our roster right now. And Kiana picked up, our concepts fast. And, it helps when you have a player like that who can just jump right in and, whether it's, she's asking questions or just picking things up on her own. I think she was a rookie who I saw obviously had to learn, other things, and she didn't know everything, and she didn't pick things up all the way on the first try. But I think it really helped. That learning curve for her was not as steep as a curve because she caught on to a lot of things really quickly.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Caught me off guard. there. Sorry about that. Let's go to last lap here. We're going to just finish up and follow up with Percy had one more and Jeff Brown has one more as
Don't
well.
let them do you like that, Percy.
It's all right. It's all right. I'm used to it. Hey, Coach, M's question really got me thinking. So it seemed that maybe for the first time in a long time, that you're going to have a lot of players who won't go overseas this year. And so how might that sort of affect you in terms of training camp and not having to kind of deal with that whole, deal?
It helps. I think about multiple things. One, their bodies, giving them their bodies a break, and understanding they have time to just work on their game. A lot of times players don't have that time. You think about NBA players having a whole season. So having that time to work on their game, and then being at training camp on day one. I mean, and a lot of players, like if majority of the team is there, like we are starting on a good note and starting in a way that, again, it becomes refresh, reiterate, fine tune, and anything new that we have within our systems, obviously, to have your players there to pick them up on day one. It just helps with the process and the journey. And I think, you think about the ability to, again, with free agents and selling and marketing, having your players here to sell it and market. As a coach and as a GM in an organization, we can talk highly about all the things that are so great about Seattle, but as a player who've actually been in it and has experience, to have players around to help with that. And I also think about the ability for them to have a mini camp on their own somewhere, work out together, hang out together, and get that camaraderie early on, that chemistry early on. And I think there's a lot of benefits for players, for our players being here specifically during the off season.
And then too, like that right there, to being able to have a mini camp kind of on their own, that'd be great. But you don't really have a lot of, there's only 4 players on the contract, so there's that part of it. Like, who would really
So organize? You think?
Hey, and then the idea of, I don't think you guys have had more than 2 rookies on a team since I don't know when. I mean, but in terms of the roster construction for next year, you may need to do that. I mean, this with this team, it's been so long that you guys had no use for your rookies. Like, you would stash them, you would send them away. But do you think that mentality may change? Because it may seem, well, if you pay your top 3 players, the max deal, kind of it'll be a top heavy in terms of where you're giving your dollars.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a balance, but I think there are strategic ways in having, younger players or smaller contract players who are still kind of experienced within our league, so if it becomes a draft pick, there's also a developmental aspect that, the younger players can have, even if they're on a roster, that it's beneficial to have them, for if not that year, for a future year. But yeah, that's the balance of not just saying, oh, we have to get rookies because we're so top heavy, but is there a strategic way to get, players, younger players who maybe have 1 or 2 more years of experience, though in a smaller salary, that is still conducive to what we want to build upon as a team, and players who fit our system. So I think there's a lot of strategy within that. I'm not going to talk numbers because I'm not good at it's not of my pay grade, but there has to be balance, and that doesn't necessarily have to be in a rookie, but it can be in a player who has had a couple of years in this league.
Well, I saw a point guard on Saturday that might be able to give you some, minutes if she do that.
Sign me up to a 10-day. Let them know, Percy. Jump shots still good.
Right? I mean, it looks a little wet. So that's now, can you guys even do like a player coach deal?
I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I'll give you 2 up and backs and I'm gassed. So I'll be no good. Just put me in the corner. I might knock down a shot for you.
All right now.
Thanks, Percy. And let's wrap up today with Jeff Brown. Jeff, go ahead.
I wanted to go back to the playoff formatting with the WNBA. It just seems like from, talking with different players, even just not even after you guys lost, but just even before that, most of the players are not really happy with the single game eliminations. And, you look at like the fan responses on Twitter and things like that, they're not really happy with the single elimination games overall.
Okay.
As far as like a change like that would take place, is that on like the owners of the teams to talk with Commissioner Engelbert, or is it the general managers? Because obviously, I assume it's not just like the players, but I guess I'm more curious of if they wanted to make that change, where does that come from?
Yeah, and from my limited knowledge, I would say that it's a mix of ownership, because you look at the footprint of a season, and specifically, what's coming up next year, World Cup. You have to think about the days in which you have to make this happen. And so I think that comes into play from a business standpoint. How many regular season games does, from a business aspect of an organization, is needed for or wanted for our league, for our teams. And then from there, like, what does playoffs look like with that footprint? And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm learning, is there's some strategy that goes into, like, there's a reason why the playoffs have to continue to be that the way they are, or there is talks about changing it, but within that change, how does that impact the days of our season, and could it be changed? Because if you think about it, Jeff, if you go balanced schedule, and I know you know this, but just kind of talking it through with you guys, if you go balanced schedule and your first round matchup of a series now becomes, we're playing Connecticut, you know what I mean? Now think about the travel that comes within, like, how does home court advantage work? Like, we don't charter. So how much days in between those games do you need? You know what I mean? So if it was just West and East, those semifinals or those first round matchups would be a little bit easier logistic wise, because we're right in the same region. And so I think those are things you have to take into account if you're thinking about, if you want to keep the balance, okay, cool. But then if you want a series, like, what happens when you play teams who aren't in the same region?
No, that makes a lot of sense for sure. But and then it's not necessarily tied to the CBA, is it?
As far as, that I'm not sure about. I don't want to speak on something that I don't know, so I'm not quite sure.
Okay. Because I know, like, I got to speak with the commissioner, I think it was before the start of this season. And I know she had kind of talked about expansion, like, as far as I had asked her both about expansion with roster sizes and with brand new teams in new cities. And she did mention then that like expansion of teams could be possible before the CBA is up at the end of 2027.
Okay.
But that expansion of roster sizes, like beyond 12 players, probably would not happen before then. Yeah, so I don't know. I was just curious about all that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there's something that, but it's interesting because it feels like it's something that is being talked about and what they're willing to change or have that conversation about it. So I don't think it's tied to 2027. I think there is some room to change it,
Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
And hey, we just want to thank all of you for joining us. We got the B Writer crew here. We appreciate everybody being along. And Erica, thanks for joining the ride here at the very end. We appreciate you as well. We'll hope to see everybody back here joining us next year. Thanks for your coverage.
Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you guys.
All right, take care. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.